Okay, guys, here we are. Welcome back to yet another episode of our podcast, The Human Centric One. So, still in this new normal, I am dialing in from lockdown in Oslo. The rest of the guys, you are in the studio in Bonn. And a heartily welcome to all of us today on this January morning where we are doing our broadcast. The title of today is Helping People Grow in the New Normal. So what we'll be visiting today, the idea of growth. I find that very interesting in itself, both professional growth and personal growth, a corporation's growth. And one thing is surviving in this new normal, but I think what we'll be trying to visit today is also like going from surviving to thriving even. How can we keep going? How can we keep developing? So, Svitlana, we have some guests with us, don't we? Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Guys.
Hi.
And I have to say, Hanne, I'm super happy. We have incredible guests for today to discuss the topic of growing people. And I was reflecting on myself, how can you grow people? You can grow your kids, yeah, but how can you grow people in the environment where you work? So I'm very happy to have Dominik Gratzki, who is coming from Telekom Deutschland, from German operations we have here. And Dominik is a vice president and he's leading top experts, data science, project management, agile coaching. And I'm looking forward, Dominik, to have a discussion. How do you grow top experts? How do you grow people? So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
And I'm very happy to have Christian. I would say that we are buddies. We are belonging to one tribe and we are peers. Christian is leading cluster learn and perform, and it's about learning culture, performance management, engagement, and you also are leading a product called We Grow, where we will visit a bit. So I'm very happy to have you on board.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
And we today decided to experiment a bit. So Dominik and Christian had questions beforehand, about growing people in the new normal, and neither of them saw the answers of each other. And we really wanted to go there to really have honest conversations about growing people, feedback, leadership, performance management, and not to influence each other too much. So I'm very thrilled, Hanne, just to go into that and to go into the answers.
Yes, I must say, receiving the answers from you guys was just such a fascinating read on its own. And I can't wait to go into these topics with you. And hopefully we will not only discover what you've already kind of written down to us, but also see where we can take it with these questions. Shall we just get started, really? Are we ready?
Ready.
Well, yes, we are.
Ready, steady. I'm just going to start with a slight little light question to start us off. The question, what is actually human potential and how can we maximize it? Now, you two had very different answers, guys. And Dominik, I would love to invite you to the microphone first. Do you want to start us off?
Yes.
What would be your definition? Go for it.
So, for me, human potential has to go with growing people, developing them, giving them opportunity, and also, default people have a growth mindset. So making sure that we use their potential not only in the workplace, but also outside the workplace to develop them. And I must say, for me, that's the most important role as a leader, to give people the opportunity and develop their potential. But important is there to do that in a purposeful and strategic way. Why is it important? Because we do that to add value to the organization. So that's why I think I would include that in the definition of human potential and what it means to me.
There's something in your answer, Dominik, that says to me that if I just relax and let my days go, if I don't think about it, then I'm somehow maybe missing out on using my potential?
I think just relaxing is a bit, you have to go into a sort of out of your comfort zone in the learning, growing zone to really make the best out of your potential. Yes.
Yeah.
And to
I think it's such an important.
Yeah.
Yes, and to maximize, because that's what we were talking about, weren't we? And Christian, because you, on the other hand, you actually wrote back to us, which I thought was very brave, saying you don't think you have a definition. You don't know how to answer this one. Now, hearing Dominik, are you any closer to an answer?
Well, I would like to look at the word, potential. Well, first of all, from the origin. So, I think the origin is potentia, which is the Latin word for strength. For strength and power. That's what potentia stands for. And while thinking about the origin of the word, I would say, well, that's obviously so. Potential is obviously something that people have inside themselves. Like maybe also talent. Though I think that there might be a difference between talent and potential. I would say talent, is also something which you have from birth, but talent. I think is the fundament. I would define it like this, whereas potential is something that I would describe it as the set of abilities. The set of abilities someone has inside from birth, and that he can develop. And that can be, a mix of different abilities, like creative ones or cognitive ones, etc. And I also think that some people are even not aware of their abilities. So I think it's also a question of leadership to maybe together with the employee discover what is your potential and where is it. And I think one way could be, to put people into different situations, to give them different challenges, and then just observe them, and let them behave in this situation. And then I think sometimes you have this wow moment, for you as a leader, but also for the employee. So it's maybe looking at it from a different angle, I would say. Yeah, maybe a bit.
Oh God, we're off to a good start. Thank you so much. Those are, oh God, where are we going with this one, Svitlana? We're going deep. Okay, great. So something we have lying dormant within us, something, and we kind of touched on talent there, and you're saying something about talent maybe being already with us from birth, but the potential is the force. Well, it's the force within us, the untapping of possibilities and force in us. Wow. Okay. Very, very good. I wanted to ask you, Svitlana, also, while we're on it, do you have a definition?
Yeah, thanks, Hanna. I think, I've been giving myself the answers about what is human potential, high potential, a few times in my career, because I'm working with talent management, and high potential usually comes in some kind of form that you have to define it. I think for now, I strongly believe in a few things. Number one, I think the human potential is, it can be really unlimited, because I think we are born and the potential we have to develop ourselves, I just can't draw limits. Yeah, so every person, every individual has a potential. And what you're saying, Christian, about the strength, all of us have own strength. Yeah. And number two, it's very personal, and very individual, and very often we don't know about what is our potential, what we are good at, and it's about your own exploration journey into yourself. When you are in the flow, when you keep, you lose track of time because you love what you do. Yeah.
Yes.
And when you get into that flow, you really kind of start maximizing your potential. And what Dominik is saying, Hanna, is that in corporations, you have a purpose. We have, telecommunications, we deliver connection to people. Life is for sharing, what we say. And of course, we have to find people who are in the flow for what they do. Like, for example, for data science, for agile coaches, have to be people who are just burning for that. And sometimes if you're not in the right position, maybe it's even better for you to go out and to find something else. So it's finding your own. I have to say, have you seen the movie Soul? It's Disney movie,
Yeah.
cartoon, 2020, just a recent one. If you haven't,
No,
check
I
it
don't
out.
think so. No, sorry.
And I found it brilliant because they explained to kids in a very simple form, and they called it a spark. So you have to find your own spark, and you're on your journey to find your spark. And I think that's what that I would say, spark is this human potential that you have.
That's a great.
Oh, that's
Thanks for sharing it.
Thank you, Svitlana. And yes, what you're saying, which inspires me so much, the idea that we need to show young people and kids that there is such a thing as actually exploring and finding and being curious about your own potential and not giving up on it. It's interesting for youth, and what I was thinking too, it's also interesting for people who come of age. So, like, is there a place and a time where you go, that was it, I've used my potential? That's right? That's a different topic. I think it's a very important one too. Well, great. So far, so good, guys. I am moving us along, so we make sure we cover all of these important topics. And the second question we managed to come up with for you guys was, what is a leadership challenge that it's been hellish hard to develop for you as individuals, but that you are really proud of today and that you make really good use of? And this one, I'd like to ask Christian, will you take the stage first? Will you tell us what you answered on this one?
Well, yes, my first thought when I read this question, well, I went back to the year 2005 when I first became leader in Deutsche Telekom. And I, asked myself, why did my former boss at that time, why did he assign me to a leader's position? What made me, in his eyes to be a leader? And I think it was because I had very high expertise in, things like negotiating, in setting up, regulations. I mean, from my professional experience, I'm a lawyer, so I have specific strength in this area, maybe, and I was a very good expert in my area. But, I mean, to be honest, I don't know if I really, showed leadership skills at that time. So, and what I had to learn over time is first of all, what it means to be a leader for a small team, then for bigger teams over years, up to 150 then in some years ago. What it means to become a leader, and by the way, I think you can learn how to become a leader, but leadership, again, is something different in my eyes. And what I really, where I saw a challenge, what I had to learn is, to trust my people, to encourage them to work on their task without, telling them what to do, not without advising them what to do, but just trust that they have the motivation and all the skills to bring the best results. Yeah, and that's what I really struggled with at first and had to learn over time. But now it's, I think, working out quite well. Yeah.
That is quite to the point challenge right there, I think. The idea of actually daring to trust and daring to let go of the need to control everything. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So good. Okay, Dominik, what did you have here?
Well, I like that question because it's quite a personal question, and I think if you're not prepared to share personal questions, how can we expect others to grow and develop? So I think it's an important topic, and I can relate to that question because for some time I really had to develop on the importance of really valuing the diverse thinking and perspective. How did it come? Because I think it's also a bit related to the grown up and developed and educated in a system which is very knowledge based. So knowledge is practically potential. That's how I grew up, and so to value, to find out that the importance of diverse thinking, talents. That took me some time, and luckily, and I must say, I benefited greatly from my international career. Spent some years in France, Switzerland, and 15 years in the UK, and that really helped me to understand that knowledge is important, but the diversity of thinking, diversity of talents, that is the key to success, and that makes the difference. And then comes also the importance of emotional intelligence, of course, in that game. And that's something which I also experienced in I went through this transformation, or I led major part of the transformation, Deutsche Telekom Technik, where we looked at 20,000 employees. How can we transform our organization, become it more agile? We had lots of discussions where I said, can't we just all agree, and then by lunchtime we will be done, everything will be agreed. But looking back, I must say, if we had agreed quickly, and if you do that quickly, you lose the potential, and you miss out on the different views and opinions and what people have. And that really is, I must say, looking in hindsight, we wouldn't have come up with the answer, with the right answer, if we just agreed and just ignored or not embraced all this diversity of thinking. And that's fundamental. And that's something I had to learn. And I must say, I had some great opportunities internationally to work with great people where I could use them as mentors, and which inspired me.
Yeah. You know, Hanna, what resonates... Can I add on? Yeah, what resonates with me, I think we have this trust and diversity as the key topics right now, but what I also love, Dominik, what you're saying, that hey, diversity is damn hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how hard of a job, because usually when you have diverse people, they don't agree.
Yeah.
And you have to accept it, and everybody says diversity increases productivity, and we all understand, but it's super hard.
That's the thing. Why is it hard? I mean, it's you think it's slow. It takes longer to agree on something. So that's why I think it's also for some people sometimes difficult to embrace. But it's also important when you recruit. I mean, there's a tendency everybody else when you recruit a second me and or you, and to look out for diversity in that process. So that's something where I think it's key to have this always in mind, the importance of diversity and diverse thinking, diverse talents.
And by the way, it makes us, get out of our comfort zone as leaders, having people on your team who contradict, who speak up, who do not nod at any time when you say, well, I think this and that as a leader. No. And that's, that brings us, because you before mentioned the topic of comfort zone and bringing people out. Yeah, that's something where we need to leave our comfort zone. Yeah, exactly. But there's really...
What I love inside what you're saying right now too, and especially in Dominik's, what you were saying, the idea that emotional intelligence is attached to making, getting the quality out of diverse populations. Like if you have a group of people with very diverse backgrounds and you bring them to a table, one of the things you need for it to be qualitative is to actually know how to create a good conversation.
Precisely, yeah.
Know how to facilitate a good discussion. And in there is the idea that, we get to disagree. Gosh, that is just kind of so disappeared, hasn't it, with all the social media and everything. The idea of actually making sure a room can be okay, even if people disagree. Yeah. That's just a brilliant point you're making there, Dominik. I just wanted to kind of highlight that. Okay. Well, so far so good. So we've got trust and we've got diversity.
Hanna?
I
wonder, you work a lot with executives as well, and you work in a number of different countries as us here in DT, but also you have other industries, and you have politics and you have business. What do you observe? What is the hardest thing for leaders to develop to really drive performance and grow people?
Oh, that is a brilliant question for me. My God. I think right now top of mind, because I heard it the other day and I think it's so true. Someone was saying that when times are hard, we will be led by leaders who speak the truth to us. And we will not be led by leaders who kind of beat about the bush and kind of just speak in half-truths or try to sell the message in a nice way, try to wrap it in a sugar coating. So if I was to say, I see some leaders out there these days, and I have the privilege of coaching some of them, who are actually daring to be brave enough to be honest about the possibilities that lie ahead of us with the pandemic going on, about the economical and financial perspectives of what's going on. And there's some real truth to the idea that, if you speak the truth, people will be led by you. And that is super hard when you're so frightened of disappointing, right? So that's one of the big communication topics I see going on right there. Would that answer it, Svitlana?
Yeah, I think we indeed, how to really not just to tell the truth, but to have the real and sometimes difficult conversations, not to sugarcoat the message. I think sometimes we tend to, you just want to be nice. I want to be liked, I want to have people, liking me, saying, yes, you're great, you're fantastic. And when I convey a different message, I'm afraid of me not being liked, or hurting people, hurting emotions of other people. And if I don't really control that, then I tend to maybe not say that. And it becomes a bit of a...
I mean, if we go into the world of like public speaking, and we go to the big like old public speakers through history, if you look at icons like Roosevelt in the States or Winston Churchill, what you will find is that in these times of immense stress and pressure, I mean, we think we're in a crisis right now. You go to like 5 years in lockdown in London, the idea of Winston Churchill's speeches is actually very fascinating, because he very often says just how hard it's going to be. And through that creates this level of trust. Anyway, we could stay on this topic for the rest of the podcast.
We could.
We have diversity, we have trust, and we have truth and honesty. Should we bring that on to our question number 3, Svitlana?
Yeah, the question number 3 was more, how can we as leaders actually truly grow people and drive performance in this new normal? Because again, it becomes much more difficult to have difficult conversation online, or to really connect to people, to establish trust over just the phone or WebEx or whatever tools you use. And I think it's even harder to really capture potential and help people be more self-aware and develop them and to grow people in here. So a question to you, Christian, Dominik, and whoever goes first. How can leaders truly grow and drive performance in this new normal time?
Well, you already mentioned the topic of connectedness. And I think it's really important, especially in these times, to stay connected with your team, which doesn't cost much. It's it's sometimes like just picking up the telephone and giving a call, and taking some minutes only for your employee, just asking how are you doing, So being close to your people, and basically, ask them how are you doing, how are you feeling, what are you working on, how can I help you, how can I support you. Give them the feeling that you recognize what they are doing, so that you are not only interested in them and in their well-being, but also in their results. So what are you working on? Think of people who have a rather introverted personality, They lose touch, and they need, they need this kind of connectedness, this kind of questions. They need this kind of recognition, and I think also recognition is very, very much driving not only satisfaction but also performance. That I know as an employee, my leader sees what I'm doing, sees my results, and knows what I'm doing. So I think it's very much about connectedness and leading by questions, also leading by questions. So in order to, better experience how someone feels and how someone's, where someone struggles, for example, where someone needs support, etc. So I think that's, some good points. Yeah.
I can subscribe to that answer. So maybe to add a bit on that, for me it's about trust, empathy, and mindfulness, and I think if you just assume it's gonna be the same as we had in the past, just digital, I think it's gonna be a big mistake. For me, what's happening right now? Well, we just. I mentioned that I was leading part of the transformation. We created a new department, created a new culture. But now that culture somehow is still attached to the office. Now we We all disperse. We all home office,
In their
some
homes,
still in the office.
yeah.
So I think we need to think also about sort of outside work culture, or maybe, I don't know, it's not really home office culture, but I think the assumption that the culture which we created, which we have in the office, automatically everybody takes home, I think it's dangerous, and I think we need to think that through and double check. As you said, we need to talk to the people. I think just assuming everybody's fine because what we see on the screen looks okay. What happens behind the screen, I think that's now the very challenging task of a leader to talk to the people, maintain the trust, show empathy, and I would emphasize the word show to really make sure that people connect. And for me, also the point of emotional safety comes there, and that people feel really safe, that they don't have to sit with someone in the office to feel safe, but also they know that they can trust people even when they are just on the call, and that's why key for me in the new normal to think about performance and how to drive that.
And I think this connectedness, what Christian you mentioned, and the safety, the psychological safety also goes hand in hand. So the more I connected, the more I know what's going on. If my manager takes time just to say, how are you? Yeah.
Don't know if you've heard of the Google project, Aristotle, you know. So Google did a research some years ago. They did a research over 2 years, I think, on the question what makes high-performing teams. And they came up with a result that the key ingredients is psychological safety. No, to create this kind of atmosphere that people dare to speak up, that people do not fear that they get punished if when they do a mistake, for example. So that's and I find that very interesting, because once you understand this, how that this is the key. This is key for a high-performing team. Then you can work on it. Then you can cope with the topic and think as a leader. Think about what should I make differently, maybe with my team, or how can I learn to create this kind of psychological safety? What does it really mean?
To follow up on that one, to connect. I think that's what I notice also my daily work now. The past I spent a lot of time in meetings talking about technical topics as well, and besides my normal people, growing people. But I find it now that I spend more and more time in meetings where it's about non-work related topics, and I found that very important. And that's the feedback I get, that things like we have this after-work social gathering, virtual. We do business walks where we can together. We do sort of buddy concept that people don't feel alone. So it's very much about non-work related exchange, so that they are connected, that they feel looked after, and it's not only always about content.
Well, we basically do the same in our team. We have a virtual coffee every 4 weeks, where we do not talk about tasks and jobs, our job, but as you said, non-work related topic, and people really like it.
Because the borders are blurring, right? So you had the work in the office, you would go, you would disconnect, you would be at the work, then you would go home. Now we are all vulnerable. You're in the home office, you have kids running around, you have homeschooling, you don't have maybe enough iPads for every child, and it's all kind of you are in it, and sometimes you're emotionally high, sometimes you're not. And I think this is also a chance for a leader to truly be a leader. Because the elements of you growing people, being vulnerable, connecting to people, connecting to the emotions of people have always been there, but now they are required just as really, this is the moment to show your leadership in here for people. So I find it fascinating.
We are all human beings.
We're all human beings, by the way.
And as you said, we are all vulnerable. We are all fallible.
I think I really want to tap into what you're saying, Christian, is that's a lot of my clients are telling me too these days, that the value of, or maybe it was you, Dominik, the value of actually calling people and doing like that little one-on-one follow-up just to make sure that you grab, because Once you're on this team screen thingy, you're just this little green light, and it's so hard to actually understand what's going on with people. So when I spoke to clients and colleagues of mine before the summer, the people who were the most exhausted were the therapists. So up here in Norway, you're online trying to understand and read what's going on, through the lens with this person in like a three-dimensional way. And I think maybe that's one of the biggest changes we've gone through in the last year, is actually trying to fill this space that we're in right now with something more than just reporting and just being like head to head, but trying to create, how shall we put it, like heart to heart too, and spirit to spirit. It's super hard. And some people that I speak to, they actually find it's better to go back to the old-fashioned speaking on the phone. And the reason for that, of course, is because you're closer to having an intimate conversation somehow. You might say when we speak on Teams, we speak at people, and when we speak on the phone, we speak with people. So that I even have some leaders who tell me this, they've chosen to revert to the very old-fashioned thing of just being on the phone, because then at least you can kind of have that intimacy. Isn't it funny?
That's an interesting point,
Yeah. There's so many purely like logical points to this, just like what you're saying too with what's gone out the window. What actually goes out the window when we don't have any small talk anymore, What actually disappears? It's not to be underestimated for sure.
And productivity, Christian and Dominik, so do you see in this, we have been in this situation for quite some time, quite some months, right? In this new normal, becomes a new normal. It becomes digital, becomes hybrid, partially in the office, partially digital. Do you see the impact on productivity of what you do in your areas? And do you have any reflections on how to increase productivity as a leader for your people?
The effort or the support we have to provide, and also make sure that everybody feels well looked after and has all the needs fulfilled they have and feel heard. That time is increasing, so I have to spend more time now. And as you said, Hanne, in terms of calling the one-to-ones, that's it takes more time now to get the same result and make sure everybody has their problem addressed and feel safe. So that's something I noticed increases now over time compared to half a year ago maybe.
And I think it's also sorry, Hanne. Sorry, please go ahead.
Sorry, you go. You're the guest. You go.
I think it's also very important to be as clear as possible on what you expect of your team, in terms of what are the results I expect, when to deliver what. So clarity on goals, short-term goals, I would say, over a certain period of time, and then regularly talk about progress. That's I think a good way to secure, and maybe also to increase productivity, but at least to secure the productivity level. But also check your goals, Also check your goals, taking into account that people, they have children. I have 3 children at home. So I also have to, together with my wife, who's also working, we have to care for our children. They're doing homeschooling. They are basically struggling with doing homeschooling. So, I think you also, as a leader, you have to think about, how ambitious can tasks be or goals be? And can I really set 5 goals, or should I reduce them to for 2 or 3 goals, considering the private situation?
So the priority for clarity, what do you actually really want to achieve, becomes much, much higher. So you can't be vague any longer. So you really have to prioritize your time, your emotions, and you have your task, and you have to provide the clarity for the teams. Again, we always had it before in the leadership role, but it crystallizes now much more.
But as you said, understanding the circumstances for everybody is different now, and that's not sometimes obvious. And sometimes you don't get the answer just by asking what's the circumstance, how are you doing. It takes time, and that's something where over time now we learn that maybe we or everybody as a leader has to develop and grow as well in that space.
it's bringing so many challenges to us, this situation that we're in, and it reminds me in so many ways of storytelling. You know, you could even like kind of go, once upon a time there was a planet, and then along came this situation and this virus, this challenge that we're somehow all facing. And then part of what's needed for leaders right now is to believe in a happy outcome, and to instill that belief, instill the possibility of not just surviving, but also thriving. It's like a belief thing, isn't it? From day to day, to not fall into where I think we all go. Well, I'll be honest, I definitely go there. There are days, you know, when you get up and you're like, oh God, it's just going to stay like this forever. So daring to hope somehow, daring to show that possibility of a future. That's part of this too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being honest, as you said before, Hanne, so to have an honest conversation that things are changing, you know, it's not easy, and we have to be honest with people. We have to be honest with the feedback, with what is happening in the company. We have to transform. It will impact, you know, us, for example, in DT, we are in the transformation, but at the same time giving hope and giving clarity of what you're trying to achieve.
I like the point, because when we talk about performance management, how was it and how it's going to be, I think we have to assume, well, it's going to be a transformation, and so people go through the emotions there as well. So it's something we have to keep in mind when we come up. Well, this is the new normal, and that's how we're going to do performance management.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's by the way why we put the human interaction into the focus of our new performance development approach. You know, that's so getting back from filling forms and serving IT processes is it, and will change the leadership culture, and not at all. It won't. So we put human interaction, frequent dialogues, things like that into the center of the new performance development approach. And I think it's important, not only in presence, but especially when in remote working and, you know, in hybrid work environments, it's even more important. So
it really matters.
Yeah, it really matters. Yeah.
I'm very aware in this conversation, Svitlana, there's a word, it's come up several times now, and it's kind of, we're not biting onto it, but it will for sure be given some time here, sometime, and that word is culture.
Yeah.
And like, so right now we're kind of going, we're not really addressing it, but if we put performance together with it, that would be something interesting for this episode, wouldn't it? Performance culture. Is it possible to foster performance culture like from our home offices, guys? Christian and Dominik.
Well, for me, I think we have to address this point, culture, because just assume we had a culture, and that culture just people take home, and we have the same performance culture. If we assume it was a performance culture before, that it will be now in the new normal the same. I think that's very risky, and for me that's one of the key things I personally will do also with my team, in my department, to think about, do we need to sort of refocus on culture, knowing that we had a good one, and but is it still there? And that's sometimes not so obvious.
Absolutely.
And it's much more difficult to be agreeing on what that culture is once you really don't see each other anymore. It's, and just even coming down to visit you guys in Bonn some weeks back, I was sensing that walking through the corridors was different. Of course it was, because there was nobody there, and whoever was there wore a mask. But it was also something else was in the space, you know. It really has shifted something deep, hasn't it?
Yeah. But to focus on this topic is really an interesting point. I've never thought about this. You know, to have a talk with my team on the topic of culture, and has it changed in your eyes? I mean, in the end, we are all creating the culture where we live in. So but that's a good point. I think I take it with me.
I said I wouldn't call it the home office culture, because there are still people in the office. But for the people at home, it's different. And for the people who are in the office, not only because hardly anybody left in the office, it feels different. But I think there is a cultural change there, and we need to address that and find out ways to the culture we want to have if you see there is a change.
Yeah.
I think a lot, we talk about performance. I think a lot of the people I've met, both professionally and privately after the COVID breakout, it's like everyone's kind of had a little bit of a think. And everyone's kind of had a little bit of a, well, when COVID is over, I'm going to do more of this and less of that. Or, you know, if I had $1 for every person who now comes and wants coaching about like finding a new job or working less or like changing and being more to the point in their lives, that's in the middle of all the terribleness. That is actually quite beautiful.
So what is different from what we did in the past, or what we are? No, let me put it differently. What do we focus on the performance development? We focus on human interaction. That's what I already said. And our core belief behind is that people's engagement, people's motivation, people's engagement, by the way, understood as passionate work, drives business performance on a micro level, so in the employees level, but also on the organizational level. And we strongly believe that people's engagement drives business performance. And what we did last year when we had conducted some design thinking workshops with customers, with internal customers, when we were, shaping the new concept, we asked them what motivates you, what makes you stand up in the morning, get up in the morning, what motivates you at work, what do you really need, or what are you lacking today? And they said, well, it's basically very simple. We need orientation, we need a clear guidance, we need a vision or a purpose at least, so that we know what we get up for in the morning, and to which higher goal we pay into with our results. We need feedback, regular feedback, and feedback in the sense of feedback which is really helping me to develop and grow. So I do not need a leader who tells me, well, you badly perform on stage. I know that. If I did, so be sure, my leader, I know that I badly performed. So you better say, well, when I looked at you performing on stage, I felt this and that. That is something what might help my employee. So getting feedback which really helps to develop and grow. And last but not least, development opportunities. So and one of the prerequisites is that I, as a leader, that I'm interested in my employee, basically, in their unique strength, and how to bring in the strength best in what kind of area, and focus on the strength and maximize the strengths and not so much looking at weaknesses of people, because I much more believe in strengthening strengths and not talking too much about weaknesses. That's basically our approach, in a few words, and that's what we are looking at. Yeah.
Let's throw in a little bit of an advertisement right here, Svitlana, because Christian, you've written an article. It's on LinkedIn, isn't it? And it is just stellar. It's just brilliant on this topic of feedback in the workplace.
Yeah.
So listeners, go find Christian's little article on that. I find it really interesting. You talk about compliments. If you look at maybe the best paid feedbackers on the planet, my guess is that would be the trainers for the top athletes. Would you agree? Right? If
Definitely.
There's a trainer for a top athlete, they would earn so much more money just from actually being feedback givers. Now, if you look at their systems, it's very interesting. It's been decades since what they did was shouting out to whatever performer what they weren't doing well. And for the last decades, what they have been doing, because it's what works, they have been systematic about telling any kind of star within the field of athlete, whatever they were doing, telling them what they're good at. So this idea of talking to your strengths and talking about the stuff that went well and talking about how you can do more of what you are doing well is actually, if you look at them, and they probably are the best paid people on the planet for this topic, they've been doing it for decades already, I just find that interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's this conversation I also have quite often with my people, my team. What are you good at? And what are you really successful at? And what do you enjoy? And if I always stop at this, what do you enjoy? Then most times they come up with a similar thing, and I see it as my role and my responsibility there to move them a bit, to challenge them, and give them a bit the opportunities to find out maybe where there's an area where they can maybe work with somebody which they haven't worked before and weren't sure whether that's working or new project assignment. And that's something to give people the learning opportunity. Not always when you have a discussion, but always keep those questions in mind. That's something which works quite well for me. And I think it's important when you also talk about feedback. That and I think feedback, we also have to think about how do we give feedback in the new normal, because I think it's probably also has to be different. Just over the phone. In the past we did it, we said, exceptionally we do it this time over the phone because I can't come to you. But I think we have to look into that as well.
Yeah, it feels a bit odd.
You're so right.
Yeah.
I am going to push us forward because we are heading towards question number 5, and I wouldn't want to miss this for the world, in particular because your answers were so interesting. I wrote down for myself, I just wrote, wow. So, question number 5. One thing in performance and talent development that Deutsche Telekom as a company should forget about and move on from. Haha. So I don't know who wants to go first. I'll actually designate
Dominik, please,
for
go
this.
ahead.
I can start.
You can start.
Business starts
Please,
first.
yes.
Because I think I just heard something which you said, which leads me to the assumption that you probably have a similar answer.
Yeah,
but
I
let's see.
I remember my answer, by the way.
So my view, and I'm happy, really happy that you include that question, because I really feel strongly about it. My view is that we should focus maybe less on the weaknesses and let people strive, allow them to strive on their strengths. My view and my experience is we have our performance discussions, and then we look, okay, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and then we keep dragging on to the weaknesses and what are the trainings you can go to, and then okay, you go to that. You should get better at presentation. Okay, you go to that and that presentation training. When I now think, for example, about the data scientists in my area, they are top-notch data scientists. So they came from well-known institute companies. They should be in the Champions League for data science. And that's the value add that's their passion, that's the value add for the company. That's if I say now, well, you should become maybe a project manager, I don't do well for them and I don't do well for the company. So the challenge I have in those situations then, of course, how do I develop those people? And I always assume they have potential and they want to develop. For the data scientists, for example, now I found a way that they can sort of give back to the organization, come up with, you know, that's an upskilling program for the entire technology organization in Germany. So where they can share their information, be a bit of coach and mentor, they enjoy it. And also it's a win-win. The company, they grow their skills.
They be multipliers. So they become multipliers of knowledge, and that also gives them energy and engagement and the impact they create.
And that's what they love doing, and that's
exactly.
the most important. Yeah.
So they should allow them people to strive on their strengths. Yeah. Don't forget the weaknesses, but
totally agree.
Don't just focus on those.
Totally agree. Yeah, and maybe while you were speaking about data, well, a thing what I do not believe in is that people are able to rate others. So I would never say that rating on performance and potential is reliable data. That's you know, I think we should really abolish this thought, because I absolutely do not believe. I mean, in this.
You're cheating about the last question. That's very cheeky of you, Christian.
And the tricky thing is, Hanne, that we will keep, that we will keep the rating in Deutsche Telekom, but just as an indicator, nothing more. And by the way, not rating on potential, but rating on performance, but just as an indicator, but not as the one, and that's what I mean, not as the one, single source of truth. So I believe you as a leader, that you are the only one who can judge performance of an employee. and that's it. And that is and I would say no, please do not. Yeah. But it's also a question of cultural maturity, and that's why we said, well, first keep ratings. I do not like them, but first keep them, and maybe in the second step we come to it. While the culture is evolving, maybe we can remove ratings.
Yeah. It's such an interesting question, because what came up for me when I saw your answer, which of course I did when you sent it to us, what came up for me was also, I've worked in a couple of cultures where there was never any feedback. Where you just, as long as you didn't get any feedback, you knew you were doing okay. If you did something wrong, someone might say something, but we weren't kind of seen, right? And this was not a place for me to thrive any old how. This was not a good culture for me to work in. So I guess there's a balance in here somewhere to be struck, isn't there?
Yeah.
So, but if
is there one culture? I would also doubt that. If you just think about the question: is there one culture within one corporate? I would say in Germany we have different cultures within our entities, and abroad, of course, as well. So talking about culture needs some I think some deeper thoughts. Yeah. But the maturity level of a culture is very important. While talking for example about the topic of feedback, like you mentioned it, Hanne, because there are also in Deutsche Telekom there are areas where feedback is just not in place, is not lived. And others where it's perfectly lived.
I work for a lot of companies who kind of go all weird when I ask, so what's the feedback culture like? And they kind of go, oh, well, and it turns out that at the end of the day, there's this level of politeness. So nobody dares to kind of, especially peer feedback, very hard topic. Anyway, it's a big topic. And I think it touches on this, what I really want to maybe invite you guys back to talk about some other time, which is to really investigate and go underneath the surface of this idea of culture, how it is created, how it is changed. Everyone says that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I guess we would totally agree, but how does it come about? It is a fascinating question. I'm sure we all have many answers. Svitlana, how are we doing for time now? Are we getting towards the end here?
I think we are, Hanne. Yeah.
We are at the end.
It felt like one
Can I
flow.
still comment on this performance rating? So I think yes, but and for me the but it should be done in a meaningful, purposeful way, and I think we should benchmark always, see what's happening outside. I'm sure there are good ideas in the outside world, and for me it's a continuous process. I mean, human don't develop exponential, at least not normally. So we should should build that into the process, and that's something I feel passionate about. And the measurement, yes, I don't have the KPI in mind, but I personally think some measurement might make sense, but then don't measure for judgment. For me, it's important measure for growth. Because we tend to, when we have some measurement, we tend to, he's better than. I think we should use the measurement then to allow people to see whether and how they can grow further.
Yeah. Very often when I'm thinking about, ratings or sometimes assessment reports of people when you work with them, so I always say that it's very much, in my mind, I compare it to the balance sheet. So it's the view for today, 31st of December, 2020. That's how it looks like. It might change tomorrow, it's not like a cash flow. You are developing, you're changing, the picture which you had yesterday might not be the one you have today, and you have to be also aware of that. So I really like, Dominik, how you say that you have to measure somehow, you have to give feedback, you have to have some objective and constructive conversations, but you also have to do it for growth and understand that, tomorrow it's changing. So it's not boxing people.
And giving them a label, which we sometimes do. That's maybe the challenge.
Okay, well, it looks as though we are drawing to an end, ladies and gentlemen.
think we
I
should-
guess there's a huge big thank you from Svitlana and me for taking the time, guys, and showing up, and for taking the time for your wonderful responses. I must say, it was a pleasure just reading them.
Well, thank you. Well, it was a pleasure being here and enjoyed sharing.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Yeah.
And it's no, Hannah, growing people is a really difficult topic, but there are so many angles to that. And I think we all ended up with discussing, leadership and how can you be present for your people, how you can create trust, connectedness, care, and clarity. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Goodbye from Oslo.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye. Bye.
Stay
Good
safe.
evening. Bye.